This week on Jerusalem Dateline, for the first time in more than a decade, an Israeli prime minister commits to the two-state solution. Is it a political move? And protesters filled the streets of Iran in the latest sign of widespread discontent with the regime. Plus, the recent arrival of red heifers in Israel. Is it a prophetic sign that the Messiah is on the way? And more Jewish visits on the Temple Mount than any time since the Roman destruction of the biblical Jewish temple in 70 AD.
I believe that when the Messiah comes, he'll solve all the problems. I believe that when the Messiah comes, he'll solve all the problems.
Up more than 50,000 times during the last year. According to the Israeli organization Beyadenu, that's the most since the Roman Empire destroyed the second biblical Jewish temple in 70 AD. The figure represents visits and not the total number of visitors. But while visits are up and expected to rise, the status quo still prohibits any prayers except Muslim prayer on the Temple Mount. Here's a story we did a few years ago about the complexities of the Holy Plateau and efforts to allow Jews and other non-Muslims to pray there. Muslims call it Haram al-Sharif, the noble sanctuary in Arabic. Al-Aqsa, which includes the mosque and the entire compound, is the third holiest site in Islam. Muslims claim only they are allowed to pray there.
Muslims have to pray, but others, Christians and Jews, they can visit, just visit. No, not to make pray inside.
Archaeology backs up the Bible, which says it's our holiest place. It's the center. From the beginning of the Jewish people, many think from the beginning of the world, it's the center.
For years, rabbis said it was forbidden for Jews to even set foot there, let alone pray in the Temple Mount, because it was too holy. Now, more and more religious and non-religious Jews want their rights to this most holy place. Linda Olmert is part of Haliba, the initiative for Jewish freedom on the Temple Mount.
Because we want freedom for everybody to pray on the Temple Mount. Isaiah says it will be a place for all nations.
A Palestinian terrorist attempted to assassinate Yehuda Glick, Haliba's leader. Glick survived, and Israeli security later shot and killed the gunman. This incident, along with constant rioting in the Palestinian sector, highlight the growing tensions over the Temple Mount.
We as a government, we are against Jewish prayers on the Temple Mount, simply because of reasons that have to do with our commitment to the status quo that was agreed upon back in 1967.
Since the 1967 Six-Day War, Jordan has kept religious control over the Temple Mount. Israel maintains security, and only Muslims can pray there. Yossi Kuperwasser is Director General of the Strategic Affairs Ministry.
We believe that by committing ourselves to this status quo, we help keep the peace and security in Jerusalem.
But Olmert says it's all about civil rights.
The only place I know, certainly in Israel, where there is a real violation of civil rights as we have come to expect them in the Western world, in free democratic countries, is against Jews on the Temple Mount.
And she says there's plenty of room for everyone.
And I believe that when the Messiah comes, he'll solve all the problems. Until then, I believe that there's a place for all nations on the Temple Mount.
Say a recent delivery from Texas to Israel signals a prophetic prerequisite to the return of the Messiah. The Jewish sage Maimonides from the 12th century said throughout the first and second temples there were 9 red heifers. He said the 10th would signal the appearance of the Messiah. That's why many are excited about this arrival. These are the red heifers that landed at Israel's Ben Gurion Airport. Rabbis believe the ashes of a red heifer are necessary for purifying priests to serve in a future temple. The heifers were discovered and brought to Israel with the help of the Bonei Israel Building Israel organization and its team leader, Byron Stinson. Rabbis from the Temple Mount Institute approached Stinson about the unique cattle.
They said, Byron, could you look in Texas and find us a red heifer? I wasn't expecting that, and it was shocking to me to think about it, but I know a lot of ranchers, and I know a little bit about cattle, being from Texas, and I always say yes to these Jewish rabbis because they're my friends, and I love them, and why not?
This began an in-depth process of finding the rare heifer that meets key stipulations found in the Bible.
The Bible gives us a clue as to the significance of the red heifers here in Numbers chapter 19, verse 1 and 2, where it says that God spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, "This is the ritual law that God has commanded, instruct the children of Israel to bring you a red cow without blemish, in which there is no defect, and on which no yoke has been laid." So it says that we're supposed to take a perfectly red cow with no white hairs or dark hairs at all, and a cow that no yoke has ever been on. So as a result, it's very, very rare to find a baby cow that is completely red.
We got busy. I used my technology people out of my businesses. First, we identified the type of cows that would be good. And then once we located the actual farms, we sent out messages to them and started hunting. And of course, they just wanted me to find one red heifer, but I just got committed. After I got to looking, I decided we can find more than that. And so happy that we were able to bring 5.
The ashes of the red heifer would be used to purify water from the Gihon spring in the city of David. Just a few ashes could purify thousands of gallons of water. That water can be then purified priests from any contact with a dead body, so they can offer sacrifice in the temple.
Some Jews go every single day to a ritual bath, to a mikveh, in order to approach God in prayer in purity. However, it is not the same because we don't have the red heifer. Once we have the red heifer, we'll be completely pure and we'll be able to rebuild the temple.
As I read the Bible, this rebuilding of the temple happens during a time when the world's in need for it. And I think we're at that time, just as a person that's watching events in the world, that we really need to come back to our roots and back to our God. I think we're very close to that time. I really do.
The red heifer must also be 2 years old. These cattle are just around a year old and could qualify in just over a year.
So if they're able to make it without growing the white hairs or black hairs, I think with 5 of them we have a really good chance of that. Then they will be the first one in 2,000 years.
The Jewish sage Maimonides from the 12th century said throughout the first and second temples there were 9 red heifers. He said the 10th would signal the appearance of the Messiah. That's why many are excited about this arrival.
he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week.
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause a sacrifice
For
the
the
oblation of
overspreading of
cease,
abominations.
for the overspreading of
He shall make it
abominations.
desolate.
He shall make it
Even until
desolate,
the consummation.
even until the consummation, and that the term shall be poured upon the desolate.
Also, as reported by All Arab News, they verified how that Israel's Netanyahu is right now focusing in on achieving peace in 2023. No doubt, as a part of cementing his legacy as the longest-serving prime minister in Israel's history. Netanyahu, this month, in his first ever interview with a Saudi newspaper, the 73-year-old Israeli leader said that one of his top foreign policy priorities upon retaking office will be to pursue an even more historic and transformative peace deal focusing on Riyadh. He said this: "I think the peace with Saudi Arabia will serve two purposes," Netanyahu told Al Arabiya's English language daily in this exclusive conversation. He said, "It will be a quantum leap for an overall peace between Israel and the Arab world." He said it will change our region in ways that are unimaginable. And he said, "I think it will facilitate a Palestinian-Israeli peace." He said, "I believe in that. I intend to pursue it." Netanyahu also went on to say in that Arab interview that by expanding the peace with the Arab states, he said you'd be able to get to the peace with the Palestinians. And he said that they are faced with a possibility of not merely expanding peace. He said, "I think we can have a new peace initiative that will form a quantum leap for the achievement, for the resolution of the Arab-Israeli conflict and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict." This was the news that the Israeli ambassador, Danny Danon, brought from Jerusalem and shared in Rome.
Countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector, with trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders. It offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
In the shadows within the government, there is a global leader lurking behind the scenes. We best know him as the Antichrist. But the current world GDP isn't large enough to dispense trillions at his disposal. This is the world's gross domestic product. In the world, it's how much money is currently in the world combined. Other words, King Charles was saying, let's scare the people, bring in the military, lock them down, put in martial law, crash the economy, because you have to crash the economy to bring in a new government, which brings in the one world government. And by crashing the economy, you have now made way for the digital dollar, which with the digital dollar, you are able to dispose trillions at his disposal.